Here's left, pulls up, looking for the lead, and got it. Jalen Williams, 2 seconds, 1:11.109. Out, SGA, probing, piercing, spinning, hanging for the lead, and SGA knocks it down. The Thunder finally get the defensive stop, and SGA puts them in front.
I'm Kenrich Williams. You're listening to Topic Thunder.
What is up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Topic Thunder podcast. If you are either listening or watching, we have a new intro song. Unfortunately, the Ludacris song, well, we all loved it. We couldn't pay him for those rights. So we are moving to free music, and so that was our new one we came up with. Hope you like it. Sorry if you missed the old one, but times are changing. New season, new intro. And we are live on a Friday, and we have a Dolan pod. It's Steve and Dolan here with me tonight. Steve, how is your Friday going?
Going pretty good. That's a little bittersweet about the Ludacris song. That's the last bit of my audio editing that still remained on this podcast. I added like an extra loop through the measures. But the sweet part is that intro video you made. That was really cool.
Thanks. Yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, you can check it out. It was fun to make. A lot of that was like media day videos, which got me very hyped to see everybody when I first started doing it in the uniforms. But we've seen them already in a lot of that on the court. We've had, I think this was game 4 of our preseason that just wrapped up on Thursday. 4 or 5, I guess, if you count the breakers.
5, but then the one where it wasn't an NBA team,
right?
And we didn't play our top like 10.
7.
No, I guess 12 if you include the injured people. It was like our top 12 rotation players sat for Tulsa.
Yeah. So preseason is done. We'll talk all about that in a moment. But first, there is some other news to discuss, Steve.
Boo.
Some sad news to discuss. The injury bug has hit the Thunder a little early this season, literally before it started. It was reported a few hours before I don't know if I can get the tweet up here, but Shams tweeted out Thursday morning that during practice.
No. The Oklahoma City Thunder tweeted it from their PR account, and then Shams gets all the credit when he just pastes.
Fair point. I actually agree with that. I think those people are a little overrated. When Woj retired, I was sort of like, what really changed? You know,
at least most of the people have the decency to put per Thunder PR at the end of the tweet.
He did say Thunder say Isaiah Hartenstein stuffered us.
That's better than he usually gives.
Yeah.
So
we're also joined by Alex. Alex Roig is here from the Batmobile. Had some audio issues. Alex,
yes.
I don't know if you noticed, but when we were doing the intro, for some reason your audio didn't cut out, and so we could just hear you still just cursing at your headphones.
Yeah.
Oh shit. Okay.
That was pretty funny. I thought it's all good, but
I was like, is this part of the is this part of the intro music?
Okay, but hold on, but how? Because I literally turned my phone off.
I don't know how it
turned
happened.
My phone off.
Technology's weird.
Did you hear me call my headphone and my phone a bitch?
Yeah, we heard the part, the bitch part. It was
Nice.
pretty
Good.
funny.
All right.
But that's why we have
So-
exploit or explicit on our
Hey.
podcasts.
Hey,
Literally the
but
first
the shit is
second.
working now.
All right.
Now that you're in a different place, it seems to be working. So Alex is here as well. We just got started, but the Isaiah Hartenstein news broke. Guess the fractured hand happened during the game in Denver. I initially thought it happened during practice, but I think Steve, you had said on Twitter that you thought that block.
Well, yeah,
might have been
that
it.
was my first guess was the block, but in the Thunder's tweet, they did say it was in the second half. So assuming
so.
that's true, the block was in the first half. So I didn't even go back and like try to find it. Who cares? It's real.
Who cares?
I don't want to see it.
I don't either. But it was
5 to 6 weeks,
He's
and
a
then
tough human
in
being.
street
You know,
clothes,
you can never see really when it happened.
right? In street clothes, I forget his real name, but he said the average time for this injury is like 35.2 days or something. So
I saw that.
average time is the beginning of that 5 to 6 weeks estimate, which would be 16 games he would miss.
It's like November. It's like Thanksgiving, basically, around that time, I think. So
he comes back 5 weeks. It's 16 games, and then he would immediately have like 4 days off for practice and then a road. So let's root for exactly that day because it'll be pretty good. Have some time to actually work out with the team.
Right.
But like I'm not really too worried. I'm not really too worried because this is basically the same team from last year, except you switched out Josh Giddey for Caruso. So this is the same 57-win team from last year. You know, so I'm not too worried about it.
Yeah, true that.
And we don't play a lot of
with the caveat that currently Jalen Williams, Will is hurt, but I think I kind of expect him back before the opener. I'd be a little bit surprised if he's not back. It was just like a minor strain, and it's been a couple weeks now, so I think he'll be back. But if he's not, we have kind of a problem of only having one center on the roster with Kenrich Williams out also. Kenrich Williams of our intro music.
Yeah, buddy.
But assuming Jalen Williams is back, Will, then it's just last year's roster with Caruso and Giddey.
Right. Real quick, the schedule, just kind of those, if we assume a 15-game absence, you're missing the schedule in general during those 15 games isn't horrible if we assume the teams are what they are this year. We've got the Hawks as our opener at home. They're not great. We have the Bulls. Spurs aren't going to be super awesome, I don't think. Clippers without Kawhi now, that changes we play them, I think, twice during that span. There's the Trailblazers are in there too. So there's some teams that definitely you'd rather play without a full healthy roster up front. Yeah. So that's something to know as well.
But Nuggets twice.
Nuggets is twice.
Tough. But we were pretty good against the Nuggets last year. So I think we'd be okay. Worst case scenario, it's the 57-win team that had a top 5 offense and top 5 defense. Like it's not like it's a bad team. He's just Hartenstein, I think we all think would just take it to the next level. So we're not at that level maybe at first. But with a 16-game stretch, like it just comes down to like hot shooting sometimes. Like it's anything can happen.
And I'd rather
last year's pace would have been 11-5, so I think that's kind of what I'm shooting for.
And I'd rather us be hurt now than later in the season and into the postseason, or I'd rather take this than that.
We're getting the injury voodoo out of the way early. Get all of our bad juju out.
Yeah, a hand injury, it kind of sucks because it feels just like so random. It feels unfair because it's like we worry so much about leg injuries and stuff, but a hand injury just seems so unrelated to basketball in some ways. But the bright side is he can be doing cardio, right? Like he can come back in really good shape because it doesn't have to be staying off his busted ankle or his twisted knee or whatever,
Right. A little silver lining. Other real thing real quick is they I guess had a I didn't read the whole thing. I guess I can read it when I show it, but we got pictures of him and his cast today. He was at a Positives Tomorrow movie event for the Hartenstein Foundation, and you could see his. I don't know if I can zoom this in at all. I can't, but him and his cast.
Kind
so
of a split
clearly
thing going on.
It's a weird setup. I wish I could do a little more, but like the brace part, but then his whole there's a cast up to his first knuckle, it looks like. So it's sort of like immobilizing his first knuckles there. So interesting little setup. But yeah, it's gonna be frustrating just because the timing of it all with when he was signed, we've been waiting all off season, and then it happens right before. I think that's what's more disappointing, not the fact that we're worried so much about our actual ability to win games. I still think we can. It's just you wanted to see it in a real game, so close, and then just wanted to see it. So we gotta wait. Thanksgiving is the target date, but we also had Jalen Williams, J-Dub, also go down in the Hawks game on Thursday. Didn't look that bad. And the Thunder came out next day and said it was not severe, quote unquote. So you would assume that a week rest.
That's via Tim McMahon of ESPN.
Yes, Tim McMahon via Dub. I think he just.
I think so too. Because Dub was on the timeline
like,
tweeting at people, and then immediately that happened. I think Tim just like DM'd him. It was like,
he was like, "You good?"
Respond
like,
1 if severe, 2 if not severe.
Mm-hmm. Blink once, type of deal. But yeah, he's gonna be. I think he's gonna be fine for game 1. He walked off the court pretty fine. I mean, he was hobbling obviously, but didn't look too bad. Just a weird landing type of deal. So yeah, the injury bug not on our side to start, but we're getting it out of the way early, kind of like what Alex said. So we'll progress and go from there. But yeah, we had one other thing we wanted to mention. I don't know how much time we're gonna spend on it, but I did want to just bring it up for especially those people who are local. The Bally Sports announced today that they are, I guess, changing brands. I don't know. It seems like from what the wording was that it's the exact same streaming service. You still get it on your cable providers. I guess it's just a new partner came in. FanDuel's very big. But then they also
FanDuel cut them a check to put their name on everything.
I think that's what it was. And then they announced, I don't know if this was news. I hadn't seen it yet, but they announced the local TV broadcast, kind of like what they did last year. The first one is on New Year's Eve.
Oh, the over-the-air ones? Yeah, they're going to simulcast 5 games over the air like they did at the end of last year.
Right. And rest in misery, Bally Sports. Alex said in the chat, do not like them. We've discussed at length, but yeah, the new, nothing's changed with that. It's just the name. But then the 5 local air broadcasts are going to be New Year's Eve. There's 2 in February and 2 in March. I think the February ones was the 1st and the 8th. I can't remember what the March one was off the top of my head, but that's always nice to get. I think it draws in some more viewership that doesn't do well with technology to find that. So always a good thing. And then, other than just the name change, I don't think too much happened other than maybe if you're interested in potentially having sports gambling in the state of Oklahoma, that might be a sign that it's coming at some point, because ironically, FanDuel is not allowed in Oklahoma despite being broadcast here.
And it's not like they bought, maybe they bought other ones, but this was specifically Bally Sports Oklahoma that is being branded as FanDuel now. So it's
I saw saw a Pistons fan say they did that for the Detroit broadcast too, and I know they're Bally. So I don't know. Maybe it was a one just for us. And that was just one tweet. That's my source. I'm not a journalist, so don't quote me on that. But yeah, it is weird, regardless, that they're now basically advertising in here, and can't use them. But yeah, just a little bit of extra news besides the game, which we'll get to in a second. So, other than that, we did have a game Thursday, Steve. We won, but wasn't too pretty in the second half.
Yeah, I only watched the first half, honestly. I've only watched the first half of every game except for the New Zealand game, of which I watched no halves.
Me as well.
Basically just watching if like the main rotation guys are in there.
Should have watched the entire game.
All due respect to the guys who are trying to make their way in this league. Like, I hope they make it, but ain't nobody got time for that.
Mm. Yeah, the second half, I went back and looked kind of like who did well. Dylan Jones seemed to have had a pretty solid outing, which was nice to see. I'm trying to remember who else stuck out to me from that second half, but yeah, I didn't watch the second half either. Once they pulled all the guys, which kind of made sense after the Dub injury to like just play it safe. Isaiah Joe had his moment there in the third quarter, I think. Went 4 of 8.
I would say that's a little disappointing in Mark to be pulling guys after somebody gets hurt. What happened to process over results, huh?
I kind of think he was going to do that regardless.
I saw a report before the game that he was talking about playing guys into the third. But
okay. Could be wrong.
Maybe it wasn't the plan, but I don't know. Why change the plan just because Dub rolled his ankle? Like, that's a risk going into the game. Mm-hmm. Your process said preseason is still a good idea.
I mean, he played Wiggins and Joe.
Yeah, definitely some main rotation guys got their moments. It wasn't like he did the breakers lineup or whatever. But yeah, definitely didn't get any Shea or Chet in the second half. They were first half guys, but they did. Those two boys did play solid minutes when they did. Shea's 3-point shooting, I think, was the thing that I wanted to first discuss because it continues to be very good. There was one play in particular with Dyson Daniels in that corner, which, by the way, Shea, for whatever reason during this preseason, seems to hit an unusual amount of threes from the Thunder bench side specifically.
That's a lovely.
And then, yeah, so he gets to just like celebrate over there. But there was one in particular on that area of the court with Dyson in his face. He was still able to pull up and shoot it. Again, still looks a little bit quicker than last year, kind of like we mentioned before, and just in general looks a little more fluid. And so I think that part of his game has still been one that has been the most exciting, just in terms of the potential that it has.
I think that was a new, like, we've been kind of seeing new types of threes from him, right? It's the one where he just walks into it with kind of a hang dribble on his left hand and goes into it. The catch and shoot corner threes are looking smooth, but that particular one that you're talking about on Dyson Daniels he was kind of in triple threat with his head down and kind of backed him off with his head and then just shot it right over him.
Yep.
It was kind of Kobe. He was kind of Kobe about it on that shot.
That was a little Kobe. Mm-hmm.
You love to see it.
There's some other parts of his game that are Kobe too, but yeah, that one for sure had reminiscence of the Mamba.
You have Mamba mentality going on there, but then like that corner three where he kind of like started going off towards the Thunder bench after he shot it, like that had remnants of like Curry right there. Like that's confidence right there. That's somebody that is very confident in his shot. And, for the most part, once they let it go, if they feel it right, they know it's going in. And so
That's a scary thing for the league if Shea is getting to that point where, like, his 3-point shot, he's that confident with it.
Yeah, it does seem like in general, a lot of the players in particular, seems like there's been a specific agenda of increasing their volume of 3-point shooting, him and Dub both. And it's interesting to see whether that's going to translate into the regular season or not. You'd assume it is. But that is something worth noting for sure.
Yeah, totally. Can you share the tweet that I gave you to share? So you mentioned the volume of 3-pointers, and it's just preseason, right? But during the preseason, per 36, Jalen Williams is averaging 9.2 3-point attempts per 36 minutes. Shea's averaging 6.8. And, you start to say it's just preseason, it's not real. But this guy at Owen LJH Phillips with 2 L's, that's a lot of initials. He put out this cool graphic, and it's shared on the screen for the YouTube, but I'll kind of describe it. It just shows a correlation among various stats between preseason performance and then actual regular season performance. And it's just like he took all the data from all the teams over a long time from 2019 to 2024 and just saw what was the most correlated. And it's really cool because, like, logically you can see that the ones that are correlated are like the types of shots that you want to take,
the rates of shots,
or like how fast you want to play, like stylistic decisions. And then at the bottom are like how well you shoot and how well the opponent shoots. And like that is not correlated because you have a bunch of bad players in there, right? Like half the game is nonsense. And like randomness, right? It's just like 3 or 4 games where nobody has their rhythm. So like those things are not correlated, but what are correlated are things like the percentage of the team's points that come from the mid-range. So like shot selection, 3-point rate is the second most correlated one. And then you have things like offensive rebounding percentage, opponent 3-point rates, so like what types of shots you want to allow, and then fast break points. So like as you go, it's just like things you make decisions on. So you see 3-point rate is actually the second most correlated thing. So like this is a decision they have made. It's the stylistic choice. And we see over history that these things tend to bear out over the course of the regular season, that like this sticks. So don't get so excited about the fact that Shea is, whatever he is.
He's shooting very well, but
yeah, she's shooting crazy well. I don't recall.
It's like 60 something %, which is obviously too high.
Don't get too excited about that. I mean, get excited about how it looks because it's clearly more smooth, but get very excited about the rate of attempts because history shows us that might actually be real. Like we have reason to think that will carry over.
Yeah. And then like the 3-point rate is clearly gone up for those guys. And it's nice to see, at least statistically speaking, it will translate into the regular season. But even, like both Dub and Chet have had like obnoxiously high 3-point percentages. But I think compared to what, I don't remember what Shea shot last year from 3 off the top of my head, but I know Dub, I think, was like 46%. Even then, it's going to be at the very worst case scenario, you kind of assume that there's going to be only a little bit of a dip with that increase of a volume shooting. And even with that, it's still a net positive to have those things. The other thing I noticed, which is on the screen still, is the offensive rebounding, which I don't know if he's going to get a lot of minutes in the regular season, but it's just something that I kind of noticed a second ago. Was Dylan Jones's offensive rebounding was pretty good. He has over 2 offensive rebounds per 36 minutes, and he played, I think, the second most minutes of any player besides Jang. I guess that obviously includes the Breakers game, but still just kind of something worth mentioning too, because as he kind of develops in the blue, that's kind of a cool little thing to see that can at least carry over.
And that's like that's a decision that teams make, right? To crash the boards or to get back. Like that's a structural decision that they make.
Is a nose for the ball. Like it just seems like,
Mm-hmm.
especially those those 3-pointers that carry them to the free throw line or the painted area instead of just on the inside. Like he has a knack for getting those, and then if he boxes his man out, those long arms allow him to get most rebounds away from, regardless of who's in the area as far as like big men. Um, yeah, it just seems like he has a knack for that. Hopefully it translates. It may, we may need him over the first couple of weeks to maybe be a small ball five from time to time. But yeah, that, if that's in his game, that's a weapon. That's definitely a weapon on this team.
Yeah, and using Dylan Jones to kind of bounce back to the shooting. Matt, you said something about like it's not really even about how many of them they're making. It's about the attempts, and totally, because there was one play, a Dylan Jones corner 3-pointer, right? The one where Shea drove and like wrapped it around the baseline to him and he knocked it down.
Mm-hmm.
That play was created because they kicked it out to Shea kind of in transition, and he gave a little look at the basket, and they had to close out hard to him because he's been taking that shot all preseason long and had been taking pull-up shots earlier in that game. So just that moment of hard closeout created a wide open corner 3 on the other side. So like it's the threat of the shooting that's going to open up so much, because I think last year that guy would have just stayed down and been like, Shea's about to drive at me, and like maybe Shea would have to take one hard dribble and take a pull up, or maybe he would try to drive at the guy and get cut off and then spin around and make a layup anyways because he's Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. But the threat of him shooting just allowed him to get right past his guy just in a split second with almost no effort because he had to respect that pull-up jumper.
Yeah, and the same goes for Dub. And you assume that in the regular season, they're obviously going to start the game together, but then I expect that they're going to stagger those two guys. And I think for both of them, it's kind of exactly what you said. I think if you've got a 30, even if it's like 36%, 35, 36%, but they're taking 6 or 7 threes a game, just statistically speaking, when they look up, you're now the math in your head as a defender kind of changes because you're having to make a decision on basically giving up 3 versus 2. And obviously the math works out to you would want to give up 2. But the fact that it's even like a little bit above 33% at a high rate is gonna affect defensive schemes and individual player decisions.
And they're correct to be affected, right? Because it's not, if you can stay way back off a guy and not close to him, and he's only going to take 2 threes in a game, he might make both of them and you've given up 6 points, but it's more valuable to your defense for you to have a foot in the paint on that guy the whole game. You're going to remove points from the rest of the flow. But if you have to respect that guy because he might take 7 threes and make 4 of them, then you have to take another step out, and it just opens up the whole court.
Yeah, I think the way Boston played offense last year, I think that's going to lead to a further shift into what like Golden State has done for the league as far as like amount of 3-pointers taken, having 3-point shooters out there on the floor. Because I'm pretty sure, not necessarily just not looking at the stats, but I'm pretty sure that most of the guys on Boston didn't necessarily shoot 40%. I'm pretty sure they were within that 35 to 38% range, which is average in the league. But if you have average shooters that are shooting, 7 to 8 3-pointers a game, which Boston had, I think a couple guys that shot like 6+ 3-pointers a game, you're looking at an increase in points, because even if you make just 2 or 3 of those, it counts about as much as you would, scoring 5 2-point shots. So, the defense has to respect that a lot more. The defense has to be aware of that a lot more. And so if you spread, if you're breaking the core of that defense up and spreading it out, you have so much more room to drive. You have so much more room to operate into the paint, that it will make this team so much better if they have that 3-point shot in the head of the defense.
Yeah, that like Boston's whole thing last year, which I think most teams, and I think we are pivoting this way too, is that they would say, okay, every one of our guys can make a three. We're just gonna line them all up on the 3-point line, space them out. We're gonna drive, and if you give us that, great. If you're gonna collapse, we're just gonna kick it out. If they get back to the guy quickly, then and they are able to contest the shot, then they just pump fake, drive again, and then they just keep doing that for 24 seconds until eventually somebody gets open. And statistically, you're now probably going to have a net positive because you get 3 points even every however many possessions. But that's probably what we're doing too in some ways because of Shea.
Yeah, the Thunder offense has been trending that way. Like we hear it all the time from the players. Like, you pass until you find the better shot. That's Mark Dagnall's like motto as far as offense goes is and sometimes you overpass. We've heard that also when it comes to the Thunder, that they may overpass from time to time, but you're trying to get that better shot. And sometimes that, usually that better shot is an open corner three. It's driving to the lane. It's something like that. And so we've been working on that since Dagnall has gotten in, since we gotten this personnel in. And I think now we're starting to see like the fruition, the bearing fruit of that motto, of that offensive scheme coming through now.
Yeah, and just kind of imagining what in this new lineup that looks like. We obviously have already mentioned a lot of Shea and Dub and the improvements they've had, but then you've got still the same guys like Wiggins and Isaiah Joe. Isaiah Joe didn't have a great shooting preseason. I think they'll probably bounce back, but you've got those two guys as well. You've got Kaysen. You've got now Caruso, who also didn't shoot that well from three, I just noticed, but historically a good shooter as well. Chet, he shot 37% from three during the preseason, so still a guy who can space the floor if you need to. You got to assume Lou Dort's going to have some nights. There's just so many guys that can spread the floor, and we've been touting this the whole offseason, whole preseason, is that they're very versatile, and that's one of those ways that they can do that. Is they can have five guys on the floor pretty much the whole game if they wanted to, that are a threat, and it's just trying to increase that threat through volume and through efficiency, which that's the name of the game.
And the beautiful thing about this team is like guys like Joe and guys like Caruso, they can have slumps, but because of their prior history, teams still are not going to leave them open, And so having those guys out there, even having them out there, is a weapon in and of itself, because defenses have to pay attention. Now, guys like Wiggins, those are the guys that you're trying to build up to take more threes, to get higher volume, so that they become scarier towards the defense. But Isaiah Joe and Caruso, they're already, completely scary towards the defense. And so they have to look out for them, and they have to kind of keep tabs on them when they're on the floor.
Yeah. I was going back through last year's statistics. Kenrich Williams, even too, he was a 40% 3-point shooter. I kind of forgot about him there. And then Jay Will, 36%, 37 pretty much. They just have a lot of guys that can do that. So the shooting, it's really as close to Boston's, not just scheme, but effectiveness as you're really going to get. And that's why in personnel. Yeah. And that's why you've seen, I think Thunder Focus put it out, but the net rating for the preseason was those two teams. It was Boston 1, it was OKC 2. And so it makes perfect sense.
I'm sorry, but last year it was the Raptors and the Wizards.
Last year.
Oh, in the preseason?
Last year's best preseason net ratings. So it might not be.
Well, we're gonna ignore that comment, Steve.
Well, then there we go. We're both going for Cooper Flag. Then us and Boston are both going for Cooper Flag this year.
That doesn't fit our agenda, Steve. I don't know why you would mention such a thing. We were on a roll there, but no, it's preseason, and this stat that we're looking at on the
team
screen
net
here.
rating is not highly correlative.
Yeah, but we're going to make it a little correlative.
Well,
for
you
our
know what that? No,
purposes.
hold on. You know what that means, right? So I'm pretty sure Boston kind of followed the same way we did our preseason, which means that a lot of their young guys played in the second half. All this means is that Oklahoma City and Boston's G League team, I think it's the Maine Red Claws, or what was it?
Yeah, it's a rematch of last year.
We're going to have a rematch in the G League finals again.
Good point. Yep. Yeah, I do. I actually think we have a dynasty G League this season. We're going to be very good.
Who's is going to defend his finals MVP trophy?
I think DJ and Mitchell.
Who's looked so good against G League talent.
He was amazing. It's just whenever it was NBA, it was just like kind of just
He's in that
encouraging, right?
Huh?
Like that's
a little bit.
That's a step away, right? There's some guys who never make that last step, right? But like you would send Trey Mann down, and he always tore it up against the G League guys. So you knew he was a step away.
Trey Mann's
he's in NBA purgatory right now.
But yeah, I guess I think I agree with Steve. Like I think Jing was like 2 or 3 steps away, and now he's 1 step away. So it's like just more steps. Just good, I don't know what that last step's going to even look like because
it's going to be on another team.
It's going to probably be on another team, but we'll see. I'm just holding on to my Jing membership until told otherwise.
And there's nothing to force it yet. We don't have to. It's another year before we have to like make a decision on him, quote unquote. So, until somebody really comes and completely knocks him out of the rotation, which might be this year, might be next year, he still has an outside shot.
The Hartenstein injury may be his third-year Poku moment.
Yep.
I mean, especially if Kenrich or Jay Will aren't back for the opener,
right?
He'll definitely play.
Yeah. Jang at the 5, it was tough in that Hawks game, though. I did not like those minutes.
Not ideal.
Yeah. Mark even threw out like I think I wrote it down. It was like, who did he put in?
Yeah, he did.
He put in Caruso.
Dort.
He put in Caruso for Chet. Yeah. He subbed in Caruso for Chet first, and it lasted like 30 seconds. And he was like, I don't like this one bit. And he switched in Jang immediately. But yeah, those small ball lineups, they're tough, which, with the injury bugs this early weeks of the regular season, we're probably going to have to see a lot of, but it's at least some experience for those guys. Offensively, the small ball lineup looks really good. It's fun. It's just can't guard anybody on the other end. So, yeah, trying to think of a couple other things in that Hawks game before we kind of grade the preseason as a whole. I thought Dub, when he was playing that first quarter, part of the second, his confidence is still there from the 3. I think he also I forgot to write down like which ones specifically, but I just wrote down he's putting together some dimes. I don't know when that happened, but I guess he did at some point. Shea too, by the way. Shea's passing was awesome. He threw one to Jang that didn't go in, but it looked really cool cross court. Yeah, J-Dub still looking good. Those top 3 guys, Shea, Dub, and Chet, I've had no qualms at all for any of them.
No, not at all.
Is there any other guys from this Hawks game you guys wanted to mention before we move on that we have not discussed yet?
No.
I thought it was cool that like the beginning of the game with Case and Wallace starting, he was basically running point at the very beginning of the game. It didn't go super great. I think the problem he faces a little bit is that nobody really thinks he's that big of a threat to go score when he drives into traffic, and it kind of allows everybody to stay at home. So he needs to like work on his aggressiveness in the paint a little bit, but running the actions, like getting us into the right sets, running the initial pick and roll and doing a kick out, like pretty solid. Nice to see that he has a little bit of that in his game if it's necessary to, not stagger. Or you mentioned that you think they probably will stagger mostly in the regular season. I think mostly, but I do think they're going to give some opportunity for stuff like this to happen, experiment a little bit, give some guys opportunity to grow in the regular season. Now in the playoffs, I think we'll see a pure 100% stagger between
for sure
Shea and Dub and between Chet and iHeart. But in the regular season, he'll let some guys spread their wings a little bit.
Yeah, there was a very early too. I think there was a moment with not Caruso, with Kaysen, where he tried to get a poster on somebody. He just saw red. I don't think it worked.
Oh yeah,
but it was just like, wow, did not
he
realize
really cocked that thing back and then just like dunked it into the guy's elbow.
If he would have unfurled that would have been. Woo.
It's just very not Kaysen. He's just so usually like plays within the game, but it was just like, let me just whoop one on you real quick, and yeah, it didn't work, but it was cool. It was a cool little moment.
Hey, gentlemen, it's been
Alex,
fun. It's been real.
Thank you for tuning in.
See you. Bye, friend.
See
Bye,
you
friend.
next time.
Thunder up.
Thunder up. But yeah, that was a cool moment. All right. So preseason's over, Steve. Before we wrap up, I thought we'd do a quick grading of all of the main guys. We don't have to go through every single one who played. And just kind of give our assessment of them before we head into the Thursday regular season opener. Of course, right after a word from our sponsors. And we're back. We're going to do some player grades of the preseason as a whole, all 4/5 games. We thought they did. We don't have to go into super detail on all of them because we kind of mentioned a lot of Shea already and Dub, but we'll start with those guys. Start from the top, work our way down. I think it's safe to say, and Steve, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but the big three, Shea, Dub, and Chet, I think all in their limited minutes would say I would give them an A performance. Do you agree or do you disagree on any of those three as a top grade?
I think so.
Chet is the one I could see potentially with some moments.
Well, so shooting percentage isn't really going to be like a big factor. Chet didn't shoot very well on 2-pointers, which is just something I am not worried about at all.
No, me neither.
It just happened. Like he's not going to suddenly become an inefficient 2-point shooter. He was, one of the most efficient last year from like 7 feet, which he's getting a lot of looks. You saw it come around a little bit in that Atlanta game. He was taking those floaters.
Yeah.
But so having said that, I think maybe like a B for Chet for me personally, just because I expect so much of him. And I like the process, right? It's he's been very aggressive. His free throw rate is way up in the preseason. Just getting to the line a ton. I think his handle looks pretty good. I think it tightened up more as the preseason went on, and he became a little bit more comfortable. But being very aggressive. But he struggled with turnovers a little bit. That's the only reason I would downgrade him a little bit. And I think that's just a growing pain. Like it's a symptom of him trying new things. And I think it's a positive thing at the end of the day, but I think it is part of the grade. So I'm going to downgrade him a little bit to a B. I wish we got to see more of him with Hartenstein. Of course. I wish Hartenstein wasn't hurt, of course. But we only got like 2 games. So basically 1 game, a half of them together. And I think that's kind of the primary thing that I wanted to see in this preseason was those 2 playing together as much as possible. It was like 3 minutes in the first game and then a little bit more in the second game. So didn't really get to see enough of it. But yeah, I thought Chet was good. And then I agree with A's for the other 2. J-Dub also struggled a little bit with finishing at the beginning, although his three's been on fire, but a little bit in the paint, he struggled with finishing, but I'm not worried about that either. That's just sample size and, rust maybe. Shea's taking it easy a little bit. His usage is way down. That happened last preseason too. He just likes to kind of chill and let the other people work their games out, knowing that he's solid with his. You saw in this preseason, Dub and Chet had the highest usage, among the minutes that they all played together, which is kind of cool, but is not going to happen in the regular season. But I do think it will, be above where it was last year. So just really looking forward to a lot of growth and really Dub and Chet taking a bigger role by the reins. And I think they did a pretty good job. Not perfect, but pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. The Chet 2-pointer situation, I think, especially in that Denver game when him and iHeart were playing together, probably that was, or maybe a reason for it, but the floaters were like, he was open and it was the same sort of looks. They were just sort of like, a couple of them I noted especially would just like weird bounces. They would just like be halfway in and then not. And so those, you could see he was kind of frustrated by it, but then in the Hawks game, he was kind of back to that touch. So I wasn't too worried about that.
In the Hawks game on both ends.
Yeah.
I mean, the Hawks,
he
they're
started
a bad
great.
team and they weren't playing their best players either.
Yeah, their defense is not their strong suit for sure. So you can't make.
But he was also blocking like every shot.
Yeah, he was really good. I didn't note the turnovers, but when you mentioned that, I did check. He was a little up in that category, but so I could see a B for sure. But I'll stick with my A. But yeah, those three I'm not too worried about in general. Let's move on to the other guy I've already mentioned, Isaiah Hartenstein, and his limited ability. There's 3 games he played. 2 games. No, did he play 3? I think he played 3. I think in general, I would probably also give him an A. I might give him a B. I think the one thing I noted that was a little odd was his free throws. That was a bit odd. But I think if we looked at that statistic you pulled up earlier, that was one of the categories. Strangely enough, I don't know why that wouldn't correlate from preseason, but it doesn't. But he was shooting under 50% from the free throw line and still getting a lot of free throw attempts, but just didn't shoot very well. There was a lot of people that didn't shoot very well from the free throw line, but him especially. But other than that, like I think he was really, really solid. His pick and roll, dribble handoffs, like those are elite. His ability to like see the whole court at the top of the key is awesome. I'm so excited to see it in the regular season. Again, it sucks that we don't get it for a while, but I think he's going to make just a gigantic impact seeing those limited moments of him in the preseason. So I'm going to lean with an A for him as well.
Yeah, I'll say A too. And my main shift on him was not realizing exactly how useful he is as a creator.
Mm-hmm.
Like I went into the preseason thinking that when we go double big, it needs to be paired with Dub and Shea as much as possible, so they can kind of like
create for him. Like
double big can be a little bit sticky on offense sometimes, so the more creators, the better. But leaving his time in the preseason, I more think like he should be helping Dub or Shea when they're alone. Like they need him out there to be the extra facilitator. I think he can really like help grease the wheels on an offense that only has one of them out there. So just his value on that end as a hub, as running the handoffs, running that delay action, finding cutters. Like I just think it's swinging the ball from side to side, like getting us from one action to the next action, just so valuable. And just the whole thing just looks so smooth while he was out there.
Yeah, I don't want to over exaggerate too much, but it did very much feel like a Jokic type of offense where he's just sort of like at the top and he just sort of like he's not at the same level of Jokic, but like that sort of ability to sort of command the offense was pretty cool to see.
Right. And it's not even fancy stuff. It's just like if the pick and roll on one side doesn't work and you pass out to him at the top and then he runs straight into a dribble handoff with somebody, that's an immediately threatening action.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just like a swing and then somebody has to run over there and set a screen. It's like split second, and now the defense better be showing up on that handoff or else we're in a wide open jump shot or a layup instantly.
Right.
It just makes everything so much more urgent for the defense. It's how you create cracks.
I think I also was going into it thinking more of he's going to be great for offensive rebounds, rim protection. Those were kind of my 2 things. And, we saw like the 3-point shot in practice and like, oh, maybe. And so you're kind of going in with those things in your head. And then it was this part of his game. I didn't watch a lot of Knicks games, so I'm not as familiar with how frequently he did it there, but I feel like he didn't do it as much. And so seeing that for the first, for the first time was very cool to see. So yeah, that was definitely an A level performance overall for me. Let's go to the other new guy, Alex Caruso. He played every game minus the breaker one, I believe. Let's see. Yeah, he did. Defensively, we kind of expected exactly what we got. Very disruptive. Every passing lane was a no-go. Even
his hands are so
plays,
good,
his hands are so good. Even plays that doesn't show up in the stat sheet still were making impacts where he's just disruptive. And I think also what was interesting of note was his transition ability and his footwork kind of in those plays to finish was very impressive. So I don't know if I'd give him a similar rating as Hartenstein, just because, not that he wasn't bad, but I just think he did what we expected him to do, and he's still a solid player. So I'd probably lean in like the B category for Cruz, but maybe like a B plus.
Yeah, I'll give him a B plus. It's so obvious how impactful he's going to be, and like his hands just jump off the screen. You can
Yep.
You can just see whoever has the ball near him thinking about him being nearby, like just constantly aware of him. He's a major factor, and it's like if every percentage of their brain they're using worrying about him is one less percentage they're thinking about who they're going to pass it to, right? But I think more than anybody else, as the old guy on the team, 30-year-old grandpa, more than anybody else, he kind of had, veteran preseason a little bit, where he wasn't going to exert himself too much, wasn't going to risk injury. Maybe, some other people should take a leaf out of his book, as you often should with your elders. But I think he was being pretty conservative, and still wildly impactful. But, I just don't think that level was there where it's like he's really going all out. I don't think I saw him dive to the floor once, which is so unlike him.
Oh, no, he did. Actually, he died. He did dive once in the Hawks game, because I remember
do it more.
I only remember it because he almost had a steal. I think it was a steal, but they called a foul, and he was like tied up with the guy. I don't think he technically got on the floor. I think he more just leaned down to grab the ball. So I don't think that counts as in your definition of on the floor. But yeah, he wasn't as, I guess in that sense, he was not as all out as he could have been. So
you can just see how many plays he's going to make that are like really going to matter. Like,
yeah. And
he's going to be trying to shoot a game-winning jumper, and they're going to go up to shoot it, and then he's just going to be holding the ball, having slapped it away, and they're going to be like, "What happened?" And the
where's the ball? It was right here a second ago.
Going to happen. Just a ridiculously impactful defender.
I think offensively too, he really fits the mold of the like Wiggins and the Joes of the team. He just sort of always is moving, cutting, and like off ball, kind of trying to find space. And when you got the playmakers on the team trying to make the plays as they do, it's a very valuable thing to have somebody like that, rather than just standing in the corner or outside on the three, just kind of waiting for the ball.
Yeah. And so decisive, snappy, right? Like
snappy.
That play that Hartenstein got a lot of credit for, right? With the little over the head pass to him. I think the very first game.
That one. Yeah. Where you kind of wasn't.
Caruso had looped around, kind of like the opposite of, the Steve Nash dribble. And Hartenstein threw it over his head to him in the short corner, and just without hesitation, he just pulled that little 10-foot jump shot, swished it. And I just don't think there are many other players on the team who would have instantly shot that shot. Like, imagine if if that's Lou Dort in that situation, he catches and probably like taps his feet and pump fakes and tries to drive. Like maybe Dub would just catch that and shoot it. But most of the players would be like thinking about, okay, what's the next step? And he was just like, no, obviously the next step is I put this ball in the basket. And it's just, in a team of quick decision makers, still his quick decision making stands out.
The veteran aspect, I think, is going to go very underrated. Just him on that team in general. And, Kaysen is, I think I've already mentioned the tweet, but Schlecht saying that Kaysen is like the perfect understudy for him defensively. And then, like offensively, he always makes the right decisions. These young guys can learn from that. I think that veteran presence is going to be very, very useful, especially come playoff time. Speaking of his understudy, Kaysen Wallace is next up. I think
I'll give Kaysen a B-.
Okay.
And it's a little bit because, and like that's a bad grade, right? Maybe I should do more. I'm trying to give him
a student.
I'll give Kaysen a C+. Let's do that.
Oh, I mean, I'm still fine with a C+, I guess.
No. And there was a lot of talk in the preseason about him taking more like on-ball duties. And I didn't really see it. So just kind of my own expectations were let down a little bit. But having said that, he's better than he was last year, assuming like he makes his shots. His hands aren't as impactful yet as Caruso's, but they're constantly out and swiping and swinging and putting them in the crossover lane, putting them in the passing lane. Like just his hands are constantly annoying to the offense. And I just think that's so valuable. And just one of those things you can control, right? Anybody could do that, but he's so good about it that it jumps out. And so like, I think he was good. I think he was like an improved Kaysen Wallace, but he didn't like blow me away like some of these other guys did. So I'll go C+.
Yeah, I'd go a little higher. I think after this preseason, maybe I'm a little, the Denver game might be swaying me more than it should, but I thought after that Denver game, especially, it felt like he's going to be the guy on the team that makes the biggest jump. I think the biggest jump from the young guys. Like Shea, I think will probably make a big jump. Dub will make a big jump. But from like the first, second, and third year guys, I guess Dub is a third year guy, but from those younger guys that I don't really categorize in like the superstars, I think he's going to make the biggest jump because I saw a lot of really nice things defensively. Yeah, comparing him to Caruso, he's not there, but I think as his understudy, he's going to get there pretty quick. I think also his physicality has gotten better. We've mentioned that a few times already, but that game in Denver was really impressive from that perspective. And when he did get turnovers in transition was awesome. I think, offensively wasn't as excited. There wasn't really anything that jumped out. So yeah, I think that's why I'm a B- on him, but I won't go as far as a C+. So we'll average that out as a C+.
It's just he's a 10th overall pick from Kentucky, right? Like there's a world in which he becomes like where his eventual ceiling includes being like a primary ball handler, being like a point guard, that exists. And that's, I guess, the longer that doesn't happen, the less likely it becomes. And the more likely it is that his ceiling becomes like Caruso, instead of like Drew Holiday, right? Drew Holiday, an impactful defender on the level of Alex Caruso, but was, a primary point guard on a championship team, like can run your offense. And the longer we go, and not that we're like way down the road, Kaysen's still 20 years old. But I just hope to see more of a jump in that way this offseason, and it hasn't happened yet. That doesn't mean it won't happen, but the longer we go without it happening, the less likely it becomes.
All right. Yeah, that's fair. All right. Next up, Aaron Wiggins. There was The only thing I will say, just I'll let you do your grade first, but I did note that there was multiple times I made note of the fact that he was not getting some calls that I thought he should have gotten, where he would get his defender off of his feet and they would jump and they would like run into him, and then he would just not get the call and miss it. And I just always kept noting that, because then I would look at the stat sheet and be like, well, he wasn't that efficient. But it was like, well, probably a little misleading. So that stuck out to me. But yeah, there was definitely a lot of Wiggins things that he did this preseason that we kind of expected. Yeah, I'll let you start with your grade on Aaron Wiggins.
Yeah, he did do a lot of good Wiggins things. I think that he's maybe struggled more than like J-Dub has with the coaching change of take a little bit harder shots, like don't just play for the easy shot. You can take tougher shots, be more aggressive. I think he struggled with that a little bit. He's taken some weird ones and hasn't been efficient. I think he's even like struggled on the fast break, like finishing on the fast break, and he dribbled that one off his foot, but that's not even what I mean. He's been missing like layups, challenge layups, tough layups, but in transition, you need to make them easier. That's part of the job. And so I think I'll give him like a C-, and that's probably the lowest grade I'll give anybody, but that's still a passing grade. I just think he's struggled with his adjustment period a little bit more than most of the players have, but I'm sure he will come around.
C- is going to be the lowest you give as your grades today?
Probably. I mean, well, I guess depending how deep into the
I've got 4 more left. So Jang is on that list too. I don't know if that factors. So start thinking ahead. But yeah, I don't know. I just felt like he did. I think this preseason, it's hard to really grade him, because yeah, he was missing some transition plays, but again, I think there were some plays where he definitely should have gotten free throws where he didn't, and it was just like it's hard to judge based off of that. But I did like some things from his at least offensive game. He had I think it was in the Rockets game. He had a little mid-range fade away, which I was like, ooh, that was kind of Shea-like. So there were some moments there where I was like kind of digging into his bag a little bit that I thought was impressive. But yeah, he's always kind of moving around on offense, off ball. He was, let me double check again. I don't think he shot too well. Yeah, he did not shoot very well, but it's preseason. And so yeah, I'd probably go somewhere in the middle. So I guess like right as a C. It was just sort of like not anything that stuck out to me. I also don't think he was as bad as he seemed at some times. So I'll kind of meet in the middle there with the man who saved basketball. We have 4 left, as I mentioned. We'll do Isaiah Joe, and then I've got the 2 rookies and Jang. We'll end with those. So Isaiah Joe first. Obviously, the shooting was not there. Probably not a big deal. We expect a little better in the regular season. But other than that, like I thought he still made some other good plays, not from the 3. I think he had some good drives offensively. I don't think defensively he really stuck out to me. So I'd probably put him also at a C. Him and Wiggins, I kind of put at the same tier from how impressed I was with them. Yeah, I guess if you do factor in the shooting, maybe C-, but I'll stick with a C.
Yeah, it's tough with like I said, I don't want to really bring shooting percentages into it very much, but that's like, that kind of defines them.
Yeah, right? He's a sharpshooter.
So it's tough. I guess I'll go C- as well. He shot a lot, which I like. Yeah. That's good. But I think he's another one that the main thing I would have liked to see is kind of how he worked with Hartenstein.
That's what I was thinking about that.
And not even how he worked with Hartenstein, actually, but like I want to see him work it out with Hartenstein, because there's a lot of little intricacies, handoffs. Hartenstein did that one, bounced it through his legs to him.
That was very cool.
That was cool. Yep. But even on that one, it didn't look like he really had his feet right. Like he wasn't quite ready for it. So I think more than maybe anybody else, he might need just like to spend some time in the gym with Hartenstein, just working on those Nick
With one
Collison,
hand.
James Harden.
Yeah.
Or in 3 weeks he'll be able to like do some stuff, I'm sure. Like, but
I
just work on the timing and the anticipation of that kind of stuff.
That's definitely what felt off was I kept thinking about Dagnall's, I think it was media day interview where he mentioned talking to Joe about how Hartenstein's going to be a great asset for him and he's going to have more space and like be more confident in his shooting. And I almost wonder if, well, actually, I think I just don't think he really did that. He was just sort of uncomfortable and I don't know if that was because he was thinking too much about it. Like, oh, coach told me to do this. I need to like put it into the game plan a little bit more. And it wasn't as fluid as it should have been.
He felt a little forced all preseason.
And so I felt like there were some moments where when he wasn't open, he was shooting it because he was supposed to shoot it or he thought he was supposed to shoot it. And then there were times where he was like almost too open and was like surprised that he was too open and then wasn't really in rhythm. It was always something kind of like not quite right. So that definitely
didn't really work and it felt a little forced, but it is a positive that is, something that they obviously talk about a lot. Like you can just tell by the way he was playing that they have talked about how effective this can be. And it's true. I mean, over a quarter of Hartenstein's assists last year were to Dante DiVincenzo. Like it is something he is good at, working with these sharpshooters off kickouts, off offensive rebounds, but also off these handoffs and these two-man actions. Like Joe will get shots like that if he wants them. And it's cool that is the message, even if it hasn't come to fruition yet and it didn't look natural yet. At some point it will, and it'll be great.
I think so. We talked about Ousmane Dieng a little bit at the top when we were breaking down the game, but we'll quickly give his grades. Like main things we've already said. He felt confident when it was players at his current level. When it was players above his current level, he just like didn't do the same things, which was a little frustrating. So I don't know. To me, he's probably the lowest grade I'll give. I would say C minus, D plus in that threshold. I don't know which one I'd go with. But like the Breakers game and then the second half of the Nuggets game, he was just like defensively, he was awesome, especially in that Nuggets game. But it was against, the G League guys. And so it's just hard to really get him a high grade just because he just didn't. It was so weird. There was a point, and especially I think it was in the Rockets game, or maybe it was the Spurs game. I forget one of those two, where he was like flashes of confidence, where he would like drive and he wouldn't. There was no hesitation, and then it was as soon as like the starter sub back in, it was like it was just a flip switch, and then when he was driving, it wasn't like he was looking at the rim. He was while picking up his dribble, like looking for guys to pass it to, those types of plays. And it's just like, dude, what? It's been like 5 minutes. So it's just frustrating. So I think I'm going to go with a C minus, excuse me, for Jag.
I'll go C minus as well, which just to make it the same grades as my other lowest people. But like I said, I didn't watch the second halves of any of the games, which is apparently where he did very well. That's probably not quite fair to him. But all I got really was that first game where he started and just seemed to kind of drift. But, that was the first preseason game. So maybe that's not fair to him too. I kind of want to give him an incomplete, but at this point we're looking at like year 3 of incompletes. So
you eventually got to graduate
at some point. Yeah. I just wish he was more assertive. That's all. And I don't know if he even had quotes this offseason about that being his focus, which in its own way is kind of troubling that is something you have to tell yourself. But I didn't really see it in the moments in the minutes I saw. But, I'm still holding out hope. I still think it's there. He looks good on defense. He he seems to fluctuate. He makes lazy plays sometimes, but I don't think it's like lack of focus. I think it's lack of intensity. Like he just thinks throw that pass instead of like zip that pass over there.
I do think he also has plays of laziness too. I think there was one in the Denver game, or no, the Hawks game, excuse me, the last one, where he did that same thing, but just like even worse, where he drove and it was like the defense collapsed and he did the same thing where he like picked up his dribble and kind of did like a Euro step thing, but it was clear he was never there was no part of him that was going to shoot because he had his head on a swivel looking for somebody and then never found anybody, just threw it to the closest guy and it was a turnover. And it was just those types of plays where he's lacking confidence and then also just being I don't know if lazy, I guess not being smart with his decision making. Yeah, it's just frustrating. And
I think that's the word. He just doesn't have the urgency to be like, I have to make the right play now.
That's the difference between him and Trey Mann to me, is because I never felt that with Trey Mann. And at the time he was with this team, he was sort of in that same position where he was like a step away. And now we're seeing, well, maybe we're not, but in the preseason, Trey Mann has been looking great. And you kind of assume his regular season's going to be productive as well. And I don't see that same, I see that lack of urgency in Jang a lot still, which is just, it's sad. You don't like to see it, but
I haven't given up yet.
We haven't given up yet. All right, we have two rookies to discuss. We'll start with Dylan Jones, DJ. I loved his performance against the Spurs. It's been kind of a slow decline from there. Part of it's just his usage has been going down. But even in his limited roles in those games, has had flashes of he's still pretty confident. He still seems to be in control of, his decision making, not making a lot of silly plays. Still kind of above and beyond what I'd expect a rookie at this stage to be. So I would say, with all things considered, I would give him a, I mean, it's tough. I think in his particular role, I would give him a B minus.
Yeah, I can't go any lower than like a B minus. I mean, he's the 28th, 26th, 20th,
somewhere in there.
I'm sorry, late 20s pick as a rookie. Like, for him to be just as noticeable as he is and not just like bad is an achievement. And his shot looks good. A lot of it's going to hinge on that, right? If he can be a good shooter, he might make it. If he can't, he probably won't. And I don't even know his percentage, but it looks pretty good. He takes them with confidence.
Let's see what he did.
I feel like it's a good percentage.
46% from 3 on 4.6 attempts and 36.
So yeah, pretty good. So he's still learning like where to be and the timing of the game. He tries to take charges a lot. Sometimes he doesn't have any chance of getting them. He'll learn. He'll get better at that. And so just a lot of that. The game's a little bit fast sometimes for him, but it'll slow down. And I really like his start.
Yeah, I think he's gonna do very, very well in the G League. I think he'll get the call up every once in a while. But yeah, I think overall that was a very positive result for what we were expecting. AJ Mitchell is the last one we'll do. We won't mention Flagler, Dukas, Leons, very limited minutes. I'd probably give him incompletes. Just didn't really see him that much. Or Cormac Ryan. AJ Mitchell is the last one we'll grade. AJ Mitchell also was kind of like Dylan Jones. Very solid start. San Antonio looked awesome. Had that. He was driving by his defenders every time in San Antonio, which was awesome. Getting really good finishing. And he also had a really good step back mid-range shot from the baseline that was like, ooh, that's kind of, if you can master that, that's That's really, really deadly. But then after that, yeah, pretty limited. I really don't think I saw much of note between the San Antonio and Breakers games. From the highlights I saw of that, I don't really think I saw much else that popped out to me from him. So I'd probably go down to like still, again, for what he is going to be for the team currently as a second round pick. I still give him like a C+, B-, a little bit lower than DJ.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'll go A-. I thought he was really good. And the game does not look too slow for him. And he's a second round pick. And I just feel like I trust him right now to like give us 5 minutes.
Over Dylan Jones?
Yeah, I do.
Oh,
I just trust him to go in there and like handle his business for 5 minutes in an NBA game and like not mess anything up and maybe get a couple buckets. Like, I think he's solid. I think he might be with the team more than we expect as a two-way right off the bat.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's going to be a part of the team for sure. I don't know. I guess nothing really stuck out to me. Maybe I missed it, but
I bet he plays in the opener.
Well, I could see that with the injuries. If Jay Will and Ken Rich don't play, they're going to have some roster spots.
Well, not for a guard.
Well, yeah, but like some of the if like Jang plays a 5 and then they got to slot somebody at the wing, that's usually a guard. Like it sort of trickles down.
I think the injuries help Dylan Jones' chance at minutes more.
Yeah, more of a big wing guy. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised
I can't
about
believe
that.
we disagreed so hard on the last.
I know.
One we disagreed on.
That's shocking to me. I mean, yeah, his first game was really, really good. It was just like, I just can't think of like one thing that popped out to me after that. So I guess I wasn't looking.
Solid. Nothing bad popped out either.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right. Agree, disagree. So those are our grades. They all passed, which is good. They get to go on to the next grade level. So, all right. Very nice podcast. Unfortunately, so started with some bad news, but the way it goes,
we'll get through it.
We won't be playing until Thursday, so we will have another pod on Tuesday, I believe. Let me double check the schedule. I believe we have something coming up on Tuesday. We do. We got some special guests coming up for a season preview on Tuesday. So get ready for that. It's exciting. I should be here. Dylan should be here too. And then we got some special guests that we have not yet all confirmed yet, but we will soon. So stick around for that on our social media. On Twitter, at OKC Topic Thunder. Go and follow us there if you haven't. If you are on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe and like. Comment below who your top graded player was from the preseason. Mine would probably be Jalen Williams. Agree or disagree down below. Also, be sure if you're listening on a podcast to leave us a 5-star review, comment something real nice to make us feel good. That'll be great. And do those great things. Steve, do you have anything else before we go?
No, had a good time. Can't wait for the season to be here. We're almost there.
Almost there. So thank you for tuning in. God bless. Hoop when you can. And as always, Thunder
Thunder up.